Hello to all of you out there, and welcome to the Los Altos Women's Caucus Candidates Forum. This is the fifth election cycle in which we've held these forums to introduce women in the community to the women candidates running for local office. Our first forum was held in 2012, and we've held one every 2 years since. This year, we're breaking tradition a little, breaking new ground by having to do it via Zoom, but hopefully it will all continue to work. The prime objective of the Women's Caucus is to encourage women to learn more about local governance, to become more involved and locally, and hopefully to run for office, be it school district, city council, hospital board, but local offices. This objective seems particularly important and appropriate this year, which is, as you all know, the 100th anniversary of women winning the right to vote. I was going to say being given, but we fought for it. This year, we've increased the number of races to such an extent that we've had to divide this forum into two different evenings. The first was held last week, where we covered the Los Altos Mountain View High School District, the Foothills Ganza College District, and the El Camino Hospital District. And many of you, I believe, were there. Tonight, we'll be hearing from women candidates for the Los Altos City Council, for the Santa Clara County Board of Education, and the Los Altos Hills Town Council. But before we move on to the main portion of the evening, there are some housekeeping items that need to be covered, and I'm going to just read them word for word so I don't mistake any or leave anything out. Now, since this is a large group meeting, by default, everyone has their audio muted and their video turned off upon entrance into the meeting. Please keep your audio and video off during the meeting so we can all focus on the speakers. This meeting is being recorded and will be available shortly on the Los Altos Women's Caucus website. The host and the moderator will have their audio and the video generally on during the entire meeting. As we move between hearing from our candidates, we'll be spotlighting them, and their audio and video will be turned on and off as appropriate. The timekeeper will interject now and again to signal the candidates regarding the time remaining for their responses. For each respective race, after hearing those candidate introductions and their set of initial questions, there will be time allotted to take some specific questions from the attendees. For each respective race, for the Q&A segment of that race, if you have any questions out there that you would like to have answered, please use the Zoom chat feature and send your question privately to the Zoom coordinator directly by selecting that name from the drop-down list of names in the Zoom chat window. Depending on the number of questions and timing, it's likely that the candidates won't be able to address everyone's questions. We'll group the questions as much as possible to answer the majority of the topics being questioned, but the questions we are unable to ask will be distributed to all the candidates in their respective races. And now I'm going to turn the meeting over to our moderator, Daphne Ross.
Thank you so much, Marge. Good evening to everybody. My name is Daphne Ross. I am a member of the Los Altos Women's Caucus. So we are going to get started with our first panel tonight, which is the Los Altos City Council. There are 3 seats open this November, and there are 7 people running. Jonathan Weinberg, Koljeet Kolkat, Alex Rubashevsky, Scott Spielman, and with us tonight, Councilmember Lynette Liang, candidate Terri Couture, and candidate Sally Meadows. So each candidate will get 3 minutes to introduce themselves to the audience, and then we will move on to question and answer. So Councilmember Liang, I would invite you to start.
Hello, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, just wanted to make sure. I've been having so many problems with this tonight.
It sounds great.
Okay, hello, I'm Lynette Liang, your council member and mayor in 2019. When you elected me 4 years ago, I said we needed to get things done, and together we got things done. Some of our parklands were at risk because they were not properly designated in the general plan. When I was mayor, I championed the effort to safeguard our parks by rezoning them properly, protecting our outdoor spaces for fun activities and recreation for all residents. Delivering on a long-standing city promise, we also purchased 999 Fremont Avenue in Loyola Corners, preventing overbuilding on that small central neighborhood business site. I prioritized increased funding for road repairs and traffic safety throughout Los Altos. In conjunction with Supervisor Joe Simidian, we implemented the first COVID-19 testing site in Los Altos to make testing available to our residents. Recognizing that we should do more for affordable housing, I pressed for enforcing rules that keep below market rate units as BMR units, protecting our most vulnerable, lower income population as intended. Los Altos is a great place to live, work, and raise a family. Although we are facing challenging times in 2020, we will persevere and flourish again. In my next term as your council member, I will support development of state-mandated affordable housing, which takes into consideration both the character and infrastructure of Los Altos. Further, I will continue to defend and protect our single-family neighborhoods and small businesses. I will work for social justice and racial equality, promoting unbiased training and community outreach. In our city, we will celebrate and respect people of all races, ethnic backgrounds, gender, religions, and those with physical and mental disabilities. I will work to acquire additional open spaces to expand our parklands and improve upon our public facilities for recreation and play. So I would like to remind everyone to choose a leader who works for you. Please vote for me, Lynette Lee Eng, for Los Altos City Council.
Thank you, Councilmember Lee Eng. Candidate Couture, you have 3 minutes. Oh, don't forget to unmute.
Thank you. Los Altos is a destination community for residents and the envy of many. Families grow up here and stay their entire lives. The trees, the open space, and all the beautiful places that we have for all these vibrant, wonderful people everywhere. It says I'm not unmuted.
You are.
Okay, thank you. I want to help these computers. I want to help keep that serenity and the community feel by representing you on our city council. We must recognize the impacts and the uncertainty of this pandemic, from the declining revenues to the uncertain business climate for all our small businesses. But we do have a responsibility to maintain all the city services, enhance our parks, improve our streets, and protect the safety of our children and all our residents. This will require thorough research, careful consideration of all the pros and cons, strict fiscal discipline, input from every resident, and collaborative decision-making with the other council members. During my business career, I've taken countless and many business and finance courses, managed small and large businesses, and enjoyed each challenge. All required very strict fiscal controls, goal-setting priorities, research, communication, and teamwork with both union representatives, union employees, and people that weren't involved with unions. I was a Santa Clara County Planning Commissioner for 4 years, and I also am a current Value Hearings Officer that serves as with the pleasure of the Board of Supervisors. I have many volunteer positions. I have the business and relationship skills and the knowledge of Los Altos to be effective. Communication under pressure is a daily opportunity for me in my current real estate profession. It's a problem for us with the affordable housing. It's been an issue for over 30 years. My first house was in downtown San Jose. So I know the businesses here are wonderful economic engines, and the weather here can't be better. The land is scarce, and because supply and demand, the home prices continue to rise.
30 seconds, please.
Los Altos is a residential R1 zoning, and I want to try to keep and protect the R1 zoning. I will work diligently to help and guide our city through the current uncertainties, and I look forward to working with you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Couture. Candidate Meadows, you have 3 minutes.
Hey, good evening. I'm Sally Meadows, and I'm running for Los Altos City Council because we need experienced, value-driven leaders with a vision for Los Altos today and who also accept responsibility and stewardship for tomorrow. So specifically, I'm running because I care deeply about our community. I am well prepared. Serving on council would be an extension of my community service. We need an effective, objective, and fiscally responsible leadership. And through my work in the community, I've been encouraged to run by many people over the years, and this year I've made that commitment. So my slogan is, it's about all of us. And why is that my slogan? It's because it's not about me or my friends or even those who vote for me. It's also about those who don't agree with me and those who don't vote for me. It's about all of us. So due process requires that a council member be fair and impartial when making decisions. They should put aside personal preferences and listen to the perspective of all residents and stakeholders. Then they need to make constructive, data-driven decisions in the best interests of our whole community. So I will bring to council my proven leadership skills, integrity, and directly relevant experience, including a decade of commitment to our local government, nonprofits, and other volunteer service. 8+ years of land use and housing experience through having served on both the Planning Commission and Design Review Commission. Through my career, I have a strong strategic planning background, so I know how to plan today to deliver results tomorrow. I've done the work to understand our issues and the tools we have to address them. I offer objective, data-driven decision-making. I will have little to no learning curve, and I will bring common sense, respectful leadership. So I truly believe it's about all of us today and tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Meadows. So we're going to open it up for questions and answers. I'd like to invite the audience to send your questions to the LAWC Zoom coordinator. You can send them directly to her using the drop-down menu in the chat feature. We have a variety of prepared questions, and we'll also take questions from the audience. So please send them to the LAWC Zoom coordinator. Okay. For this first question, I'd like to start with Councilmember Lee Eng. And then Candidate Couture, and then Candidate Meadows, and then we'll start with somebody else the second time around. Councilmember Lee Eng, if reelected, what 3 things would you do to ensure that Los Altos continues to be financially strong during these uncertain times? Oh, Councilmember, you're muted, or we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
You should be able to hear me now.
Yes.
Okay, the 3 things I would do as a fiduciary steward of public funds. Number 1, I would insist on regular monthly reviews of our revenues and expenditures, pressing for greater budgetary accountability. We really need to understand our revenues and our expenditures. The other thing is we really need to continue to review our priorities. As a council, we make our council priorities together. And from there, we need to repeatedly review our priorities and understand that if our budget doesn't allow for it, we got to work together to see how we can meet these goals. But it's important to maintain our essential services for our public. The other thing we need to do is we have to work with our finance commission so that we can work together and make sure we stay within our budget.
Your time is up. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Councilmember Liang. Candidate Couture?
Last night when I was watching the council meeting, more than one council member asked to see where we were with the finances. It looks like they're not getting enough updated information on the finances in a rapid time when we really need to know what's going on because of, number one, COVID, and number two, we have that beautiful community center going in, and I believe that we're going to need to borrow some money for that. So the financial control really needs to be carefully checked. Second, I'm a little worried about health and safety of our families. I feel like we've done a very good job with COVID. We are going to need to do more to help the businesses get through this time. It's going to get cold. We're going to need to help them figure out a way to keep viable if COVID keeps us locked down through the winter. If we can't go inside to eat, we're going to need to find a way to put maybe shields over.
Sorry, your time is up.
Thank you.
Sorry.
And Candidate Meadows?
So first of all, to get a handle on the budget and to make sure we're fiscally responsible with our finances, we need to eliminate some of these wasteful lawsuits. So there's a number of suits we've either had to settle. In one case, we've even lost, and there's others still ongoing. These are costing us millions of dollars. And not, so then the second thing we need to do to be fiscally responsible is look at the money we're talking about borrowing for the community center. See if we can reduce that amount. Keep in mind, again, these lawsuits are probably costing us more money than we need to borrow for the community center. So let's think about putting our budget towards constructive rather than wasteful exercises. And then third, I do think we need to get a handle on where all these pockets of money are sitting. We're not seeing all of it, at least certainly from the public view. So we need to be able to see where it all is and prioritize our spending so that we can deliver
Thank you.
Constructive value for our community.
Thank you, Sally.
Thank you, Candidate Meadows. For our second question, we'll start with Candidate Couture. As a council member, you represent the whole town. How do you reconcile your personal beliefs and those of your supporters with data and information you receive and come to decisions that benefit all residents?
It's been a long-standing practice of mine in real estate that I try to give my clients the best information and let them make the decisions. I do that with every single project I'm working on. The residents are very important, and that's why I'm running. It will be up to them to tell me what to do. I'm merely the conduit. I am not the judge. They will tell me what they want, and I will abide by that. It's a lot about surveys and communication, which I'm very good at. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Couture. Candidate Meadows, same question.
Yes. So when I say it's about all of us and that council members represent every single resident, it doesn't mean we all agree. We never all agree. We know this. And so yet council still has to make decisions for the best interests of the community overall and moving forward. So it's not about making us all sing and hold hands and sing kumbaya and we all agree. We know that's not the way it is, but we need to make objective and informed decisions and make ones that will be forward looking so that we're not leaving our residents and our neighborhoods in financial distress because we're making irresponsible decisions.
And Councilmember Liang.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Of course. As a council member, you represent the whole town. How do you reconcile your personal beliefs and those of your supporters with data and information you receive and come to decisions that benefit all residents?
Thank you for that question. As you know, it's important to get good data. And that is one thing as a council member we have worked to acquire. We have also as a council continued to do public outreach. It's not about addressing what our special interests or supporters or anyone use. You have to be open-minded and objective. And also having good information from our staff is critical. And we have to continue to work with the staff and provide direction when needed to acquire the information that we make our decisions on. Thank you.
Thank you. For this next question, we'll start with candidate Meadows, correct? This is a question from our audience. When faced with a California law that impacts our town and may have some people in town voicing concerns about the law or don't agree with it, what do you think is the best course of action for council? How should fiscal resources be allocated based on your course of action? A recent example is the legal action regarding housing density based on California law. I assume this person is talking about SB 35.
Okay, so I'm supposed to answer this in a minute, huh? Okay, so sure, why not? So if a law has not been passed yet, fair, go out, fight it, do what we can and say this doesn't work for our community. Once a law is passed, it's the law. Doesn't matter whether we like it. In fact, a lot of them we don't, but it's the law. So in the case where we have to do something, whether we like it or not, and frankly, whether any of us as residents like it or not, we must follow the law. We've seen what happens when we don't. That's why we're accruing all these legal expenses. We're not following our own zoning, much less state laws. So we have to get used to the thought that let's work with some of these proposals, try to get the best that we can out of them, and don't make decisions that are contrary to our own zoning and state laws.
Thank you, candidate Meadows. Councilmember Lee Eng.
The question you asked was, it doesn't have anything to do with, could you repeat that question? Because I'm kind of confused by that question on how you worded that question.
Sure. When faced with a California law that impacts our town and may have some people in town voicing concern about the law, meaning they don't agree with it,
right?
What do you think is the best course of action for council? How should fiscal resources be allocated based on the course of action that's chosen? A recent example is the housing density issue with SB 35.
Okay, the state legislature, which is elected by the people, has passed a number of bills that has influenced local decision making. So I know that the staff, and we work with the staff, and we are council members, have to strive to follow those state laws. So that's why what we have done as council is work to improve our objective standards so that we can adhere to the law, but yet work within our own ordinances and protect our community and our city as well. So we are here to uphold the law, and that's what we do, working together with our staff and our city attorney.
Thank you, Councilmember Lee Eng. And candidate Couture.
Much as both of the other candidates said, we do have to follow the law. And as council members, we can get all kinds of help from our staff and also from our commissioners to help us come up with good, solid planning to help us follow the law. So it sits in the character with Los Altos, but it also follows the law. And I'm sure they're not just talking about building. I'm sure they're talking about other laws. And the laws of the state and the federal government are very important to all of us, because without them, we wouldn't have a very safe community. Everybody wants a safe community. And our goal as council is to make sure to protect everybody in every way that we can in multitudes of different departments.
Thank you, Candidate Couture. Excuse me. We will start with Council Member Lee Eng for this question. This is a question from the audience. What have you done to educate yourself about racial inequity and injustice and the experience of Blacks in Los Altos?
What have I done?
Yes.
What have I done to educate myself?
Yes.
I have worked with the community. I have done outreach. I have spoken to other nonprofits in this area and other social equity groups. So that is what I have done. It is important for us to always remain open, and that's why council holds open office hours, and people are welcome to contact us. And when people do contact us, I am good about following up. I have reached out to everyone who has wanted to speak to me regarding their concerns, and I try to represent them best I can. So I have done a lot to reach out to other communities and other nonprofits and other organizations to better understand their concerns. So thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Couture?
In my professional career, I've worked with many different sexes and races, and as long as you do a good job in what you're doing, I'm not concerned about color. I'm not concerned about race. I'm not concerned about religion. I get along with everybody in every job I do. I volunteer at the VA hospital, and many of the veterans are of all different creeds, races, and colors, and they're all wonderful people. My best friend is not Caucasian, so I don't really see race. Everybody on my street is a different race. I don't see race at all. I see people, and people are wonderful.
Thank you, Candidate Couture. And Candidate Meadows?
So I thought the council did a good job. They had the police town hall listening session. I attended that. I thought it was very useful. We heard lots of testimony from lots of people. Young people especially spoke up for about what they've experienced. I think that the police chief made a good start with sharing some of the data, but we need to understand all the data, have it be transparent, and have it be wrapped up into accountability and performance standards that council and the police chief together can institute for our officers. I've also had several conversations with people. I'm interviewing with a group associated with racial justice later this week. And I've done work to read up on it, including listening to testimonials on some of the websites associated with this. So I'm really trying to inform myself, but the bottom line is Los Altos should be an inclusive and welcoming place, and no one should feel targeted, harassed, or discriminated against.
Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Meadows. Candidate Couture. COVID has impacted families in many ways, including having to adjust to online learning at home. Is there a role for City Council to play to help alleviate the impact on families?
I think City Council can help the disadvantaged and the low-income families to make sure that they have internet access. I know the schools take care of breakfast and lunch. But I know there's lots of children out there that are having stressful situations. So anything that we can do to help get public health officers to help the children that are feeling stressed and concerned about their futures because of this COVID learning at home would be helpful. I know they're in the works with that, but we're not there yet.
Thank you, Candidate Couture. Candidate Meadows?
Yes, I'm sorry, Daphne, can I ask you to repeat the question? I apologize.
Of course. COVID has impacted families in many ways, including having to adjust to online learning at home. Is there a role for City Council to play to help alleviate the impact on families?
Yeah, so there is a dramatic impact. I'm a mentor to a young lady who's a senior at Los Altos High School, so I've seen her go through the distance learning, which started, of course, last spring, and now she's doing it for her senior year. It's a dramatic impact on families. I can't imagine having young children at home that you're working with to get through school over Zoom. But what City Council can do is make sure we have the right infrastructure. We are under lawsuits about 5G access, which we've turned down. We'll see how that goes. We have abysmal internet service. I can't get, we have terrible cell phone service. I lost internet, and my husband and I had to piggyback off a 1-bar signal for several days. So we have terrible infrastructure for all of us, and it's particularly handicapping those families who need to access education and support services online. We need to do something about it.
Thank you, Candidate Meadows. And Councilmember Lee Eng?
Yeah, thank you. That's a wonderful question. Everyone is experiencing some challenges, and the school district and the city can continue to partner. As we partner, there are nonprofit organizations that we have supported and contributed to, so that they can in turn return assistance to our students. When we have students that are experiencing anxiety, we have promoted CHAP that offers counseling services to children who are feeling cooped up and need someone to talk to during this difficult time. We can continue to educate people on how our library services are available. So we help send out information through our network and our channels. So we do continue to partner with a lot of county agencies where we provide services when needed. But once again, we need to keep our channels of communication.
Sorry. Your time is up. I'm sorry.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Lee Eng. I have lost, I think we're starting with Candidate Meadows, is that right? Or I think I've lost track. Oh, Candidate Couture. That would make sense, right? What would you do to support small businesses given the limits on their businesses due to COVID? Actually, I think it's Candidate Meadows' turn to go first. Is that correct, Sal?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Zoom coordinator. Okay. Candidate Meadows, what would you do to support small businesses given the limits on their businesses due to COVID?
Yeah, so that is a very difficult situation. The businesses are bearing the brunt of this pandemic. So I think we've had a little bit of a grace period with the warmer weather and the Open Streets program, which was conducted in collaboration with the Chamber of Commerce and Los Altos Village Association with input from the businesses. I think that was a good start. But now, as has been mentioned before already, the weather is turning. So what are some permanent sustainable solutions? Are we going to be able to open up to some lower density of people dining in? Will the parklets be able to be run during the winter? Will we have heat lamps and coverings? So I think that it's the city's job to collaborate with the businesses, the chamber, village association, and any other group to take new ideas, because I don't think any of us have solutions. This is an uncharted territory for all of us, and implement those to help the businesses make it through. Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Meadows. Councilmember Lee Eng, same question.
Thank you. All of us on the council has been very responsive. The city council, which I have been a part of, has been very responsive to the impact of COVID-19 and supportive of our small businesses through the grant program. We need to continue to work together with the restaurants retailers, the Chamber of Commerce, LAWA, and LACF. We need to continue to find a way to support our small business, but it has to be the small businesses of all 7 of our business districts. So once again, this is coming before council where we will continue to work with our economic director and gather input to see how we can further support and continue such programs as our open streets programs in downtown. But we must remember that we should try to be fair and look at how we can support the small businesses of all 7 of our districts. And we can continue to work.
Thank you, Lynette. I'm sorry, your time is up.
Thank you, Councilmember Liang. And Candidate Couture?
Hi. So in Europe, in the winter, they eat outside under covered tarps and also heat lamps. Maybe we can get the people in Los Altos to donate heat lamps like they did the bricks or some such thing. I know our residents are very, very comfortable donating to tangible items. They just don't want to donate down to a black hole. I like the idea of the little shoplets, and Lava is doing a very good job pushing to have everybody shop downtown. All of us, the more good, fun things they can do downtown to envelop us, the better. People are still very nervous about COVID, so those of us who aren't should be able to do everything we can to help. And the city council is planning on doing some other things. I'm just not privy to what they are at this point.
Thank you.
Great, thank you, Candidate Couture. And this last question, we will start with Councilmember Liang. As a member of the Los Altos City Council, would you be willing to support our local schools by making improvements that facilitate use of LASD's new 10th site, such as adding sidewalks or bike lanes or pedestrian bridge, etc.?
So we as a city do support our schools. We need to understand the infrastructure needed. And from there, we have our staff as well as our commission analyze the situation. So yes, the council is always there to support our schools in providing the public infrastructure surrounding the schools. But we need to understand that the site has to be within the city of Los Altos, which is our jurisdiction. So it all matters where the school is located. So once again, in providing the infrastructure needed, we can do so if it's located within our city boundaries.
Thank you, Councilmember Liang. Candidate Couture?
Again, about the school, I'm not sure exactly where the new site is going to be, but as Ms. Liang said, she's talking about supporting the infrastructure, the sidewalks, the being able to have the lights that flash that make sure that the kids can cross the street properly. They have the crossing guards, that all the infrastructure that takes care of letting the kids come through school. I know on Covington, they put some more stop signs to slow traffic down for the kids at the crossing down there by the block school. So anything the council can do to support the kids in all the schools is great. And I know they're doing the best they can.
Thank you, Candidate Couture. And Candidate Meadows?
So safe routes to school is one way that we can help our kids get to where they need to go. Again, this is agnostic of which site is where, so I don't know that it doesn't have to do necessarily with the 10th school site. We need to make sure that kids can bike and walk safely. We support crossing guards. I think that's an important thing to do. And we need to make sure that we have, there's a very effective speed hump. So if we can have more of those speed humps, it's on Almond near the high school. It slows traffic down and it allows kids to cross. So the more that we can do to make, to get kids and their parents out of cars and kids walking and biking and doing it safely, then the better off we'll all be.
Thank you, Candidate Meadows. That's all the time that we have for the Los Altos City Council panel. Thank you so much for joining us, Councilmember Lee-Ing, Candidate Couture, Candidate Meadows. We are now going to go on to our second panel for the evening, which is, excuse me, the Santa Clara County Board of Education, Area 1. There is one seat. Before I move on, I want to thank everybody for submitting their questions. There were lots of questions, and we will make sure to get those to the panelists as we had promised. But please keep sending the questions to the LAWC Zoom coordinator as you have them. So the Santa Clara County Board of Education Area 1, there is one seat open this November. There are 2 people running, Board Member Grace Ma and candidate Melissa Baten Caswell are with us tonight. Board Member Ma, you have 3 minutes to introduce yourself to the audience.
Okay, I'm unmuted too. Good evening. Thank you all to the Los Altos Women's Caucus for the opportunity to meet you all tonight and to have you get to know me and my priorities in my re-election to the Santa Clara County School Board. I would like to respectfully take a moment in silence for the passing of Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. My priorities on the County Board of Education are the following. First, addressing access to technology for all of our students to be successful in distance learning. Second, improving equity in education, making sure all students have an excellent education, regardless of zip code. And third, expanding high-quality childcare and preschool for the county's families, both for essential workers who needed to get back to work and for working families who face long wait lists and high costs. With respect to addressing the chaos of the pandemic, the County Office of Ed has been working with the Public Health Department, California Department of Ed, and local school districts to provide reopening guidelines and managing access of technology and internet to students without those resources. We've been working with the County Board of Supervisors and technology partners to provide computers and Wi-Fi across Santa Clara County. You probably saw the Mercury News article highlighting children at a Taco Bell accessing their free Wi-Fi. We still need 50,000 computers and 10,000 hotspots for students without the resources to accomplish distance learning. When it comes to equity in education, every child deserves an excellent education, no matter where they live. We in the North County have many excellent schools, but across the county in East San Jose and South County, schools have not served all students well. I'm proud to have stood behind schools with innovative school models designed to support disadvantaged students. Today, many of the schools I supported are listed among the top Bay Area public schools for underserved students. My third priority is on expanding preschool access to all babies, infants, and toddlers. I co-founded the Strong Start Coalition, an organization devoted to increasing preschool opportunities as a significant factor in closing the achievement gap. I initiated the first Santa Clara County's children's budget with Julie Cates and Dana Bunnett, also Strong Start members, and we spent many years working with the Santa Clara County Budget Officer and Finance Department staff. By focusing on where funding is invested in children and youth programs, the county defines its values and can see the gaps. I'm a champion for equal access to great schools for all students. The County Office of Ed is charged with educating the most vulnerable students in the county. Those who are not of critical mass to be fully supported by the local districts.
30
Students
seconds.
such as special ed and severely disabled, alternative ed or expelled students, incarcerated youth, and foster youth. I've attended the graduation events for the special ed and alt ed students for the last 12 years, and it's always so inspiring to see the shining eyes of those students who have overcome economic, societal, emotional, and physical challenges. I stand for equal access to great schools for all students. Thank you very much. I'd be honored to have your vote.
Thank you, Board Member Ma. Candidate Baten Caswell, you have 3 minutes.
Hi, thank you very much for hosting this evening. It's a pleasure to meet all of you. My name is Melissa Baten Caswell. I'm a 12-year board member in Palo Alto Unified School District. I've been on the ground. I've advocated for kids in Palo Alto. I also spent the last year as the president of the Santa Clara County School Boards Association. Before that, I was on the Santa Clara County Board in various roles. I've advocated at the state level as part of the California Suburban School Districts Association and Schools for Sound Finance, which represents the basic aid districts across California. I have been involved in education in this community for over 20 years. I started out as a parent in the PTA, doing every PTA job like many of you. I was the president of my children's PTA, and then I was the president of the Palo Alto Council of PTAs, which covered all of the PTAs in Palo Alto. When I ran for the school board in 2007, the first thing I did in coming onto the board was to focus the board on a strategic plan that everybody could be part of. Not just something that sat on the shelf, but something that we actually used and measured ourselves against. That strategic plan is something we still use today. We don't call it the strategic plan. We have a nicer name for it. We call it the Palo Alto Promise. But it's something that I am committed to. And my background is not just in being a volunteer. My background also is as a corporate executive. I've been involved in high-tech firms. I've been senior management in high-tech firms across the valley. I came here from the East Coast when I finished my MBA to work at Sun Microsystems. My background also includes working on Wall Street as a banker. So I have a wide range of experiences that I would like to bring to not just serve one district, but to serve our kids across all of the county. One of the things that I found when I joined as president of the Santa Clara County School Boards Association is that once we went into shelter in place, I brought all of the different board members together in a different forum. We had formal meetings, but I decided to start bringing people together once a week in less formal
30
meetings
seconds.
to support each other. And one of the things I found is there are common issues across all of our districts in the county, and we need to address them. The Santa Clara County Office of Education has responsibility for the most vulnerable, but also to support all the districts in Santa Clara County. I am running to be able to do that and serve all kids so that we have excellent education for all. 27 of the 30 trustees in this area, Area 1, have endorsed me.
Sorry, your time is up.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, candidate Baten Caswell. So for this first question, I'll start with board member Ma. The Area 1 representative covers Palo Alto, Los Altos, Mountain View, and parts of Sunnyvale. What do you see as the role of a county board member in understanding the issues of the school districts in their trustee area, and then carrying those forward when considering policy and governance?
So I've been very happy and proud to represent the North County populations and school districts. And I think the role of the county board has been in generally oversight and in convening. And one of the things that we're specifically charged with at the county office is to provide services to the school districts. And so one of the things that I've done with respect to working with the school districts is attend a lot of the meetings and associated community issues with respect to the school districts. So I've attended, for instance, a number of Los Altos School Board meetings, along with Mountain View Wisman School Board meetings and Palo Alto School Board meetings, to understand where the superintendents and the school board members are going, what issues are coming up at the district, and being open to speaking with constituents who have brought issues forth to me from the North County.
Thank you, board member Ma. Candidate Baten Caswell?
Yeah, as I said, the County Office of Education has a responsibility for our most vulnerable, but also has a responsibility to represent all of the school districts and schools across the county. As a representative, I already have every one of our trustees across our trustee area in speed dial. I have them texting me all the time. We're regularly having communications. As the County School Boards Association president this past year, I facilitated many conversations about what the issues are. Things have changed. We're in the middle of a pandemic. We're in a financial freefall. No one really knows what the right solutions are because this is a brand new situation. Every board member I talk to is looking for support on best practices. No one wants to invent this stuff themselves. It's too hard. It will take too long. It's not going to serve enough students. So we need to come together. We need to come together and work together to make sure we're sharing those best practices.
Thank you.
Represented,
Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Baten Caswell. This question, I'll start with you. What have you done to close the growing achievement gap in your position in Palo Alto?
yeah, the achievement gap, unfortunately, is not a new problem. It's something I've been working on. I was working on as part of the PTA leadership. It's something that I worked on for my entire time on the Palo Alto School Board. There's not one solution, and I think everybody really wants just one solution. If we just got appliances for every one of our kids in the digital divide, then they'd be successful. Then we wouldn't have an achievement gap. That's just not true. There's so many barriers to success, and you need to look at this as a multi-stage model. In my role on the school board in Palo Alto, I advocated and made sure that we had some early childhood education programs to get our most struggling kids ready for kindergarten, or at least up to the area where they could participate and not be behind coming in. I focused on making sure that we had a direct path for all of our students from our public schools into our public universities. That seems like it's a no-brainer.
Thank you.
I'm
Thank
not
you.
say on this.
I know. I know that there's definitely more to say. And board member Ma, the same question.
Yes. So I just happen to have some of the statistics on the achievement gap. And unfortunately, Palo Alto Unified's achievement gap is way above the achievement gap that, for instance, the charter schools that the County Office of Ed has approved. For instance, in math for grades 3 through 5, the achievement gap in the last year for Palo Alto Unified is 47%, while the achievement gap for the Santa Clara County approved charter schools is 12%. In fact, the Rocket Ship schools, which is a series of charter schools that some of them we have approved as the authorizer at the county office, but some have been approved by the local school district, their achievement gap is only 15%. So they have done spectacularly well, and we have done well in comparison to Palo Alto's achievement gap. So I have been working and supporting school districts and schools that are working on closing that achievement gap, really bringing equity in education methodology and pedagogy.
Thank you.
Thank you, board member Ma. We'll start with you for this next question. Do you support charter schools and other choice programs? Why or why not?
So charter schools are not necessarily the same as choice programs. So there's a kind of distinction there. There is legal legislation with the education code to support charter schools. They were created, the legislation, about 25 years ago. And there is specific wording in the ed code to support charter schools that are innovative, supporting student achievement, and to give priority to charter schools who are addressing underserved and underprivileged students. And so legally, we are required on the Board of Education to support charter schools. As far as choice programs, that is part of charter schools, if you will. That typically it is programs that the families or administrators or teachers have created outside of the traditional school district, where the choice of these parents are to create a charter school and attend a charter school.
Sorry.
Candidate Baten Caswell.
Yeah, I support schools that support children. So I support good educational programs in all forms. And I believe that our schools need to look at not just themselves, but the county office and anybody who's evaluating a school needs to look at the whole program and how the program works within a community. In terms of choice schools, well, we have schools of choice within our district in Palo Alto. And that actually works well. Families have pulled together and said that they want certain ways of teaching or certain focuses, and we provided that. And those have been very successful in our district. we've mixed that and made sure that we have neighborhood schools that are very strong. So all of these choices need to build up the general education program because public schools need to be strong. They are the trajectory that changes people's lives.
Thank you, candidate Baten Caswell. The next question is, we'll start with you, candidate Baten Caswell. What was your role in the Office of Civil Rights investigations into the sexual harassment of students and physical harassment of special education students?
I assume you're talking about Palo Alto, am I correct?
Yes. Correct.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a board member. We did an investigation. I think that we learned a lot on how to do investigations and how to make them independent. I think when the allegations first came forward to us, we may not have, as a district, done all the things we needed to do, but I think along the way we learned. And as a board member, I supported the putting a very large investment towards doing good investigations, making sure that we were following all of the laws. And I think at this point, my experience in Title IX and making sure that we're protecting all students against allegations of harassment, I feel like I have learned an incredible amount and best practices to share with other districts and other board members.
Thank you, candidate Baten Caswell. And board member Ma?
So although this is more specific to the Palo Alto situation, I guess I am not as knowledgeable about how the board handled the situation. There was the recent announcement just today in the newspaper that the one settlement for a bullying situation was settled by the school district for $50,000. And the thing that strikes me is that this case was one that started in 2016. So it seems like it's been a long time in coming. And I don't know the details. Certainly that's more things discussed in closed session, but the amount of legal fees would definitely be something that I would be concerned about as a fiscally responsible board member, as to how much and how costly a lot of these different lawsuits have been with respect to sexual harassment and bullying and special education.
Thank you, board member Ma. And another question concerning charter schools. Should the county board be involved in the Bullis Los Altos School District issues? And if so, how?
Is this mine?
So no, I get to go first.
Yes.
And so this is a 17-year-old problem, and the county office has always been involved in the sense that we are the authorizer for the Bullis Charter School when it was originally denied as a petition to the Los Altos School District. Although we are the authorizer, that is again specified in law as to what our responsibilities are. And so with respect to the issues and troubles that had conflict that's been going on for these 17 years, the County Board of Education has been attempting in a number of times to come and mediate and discuss and try to bring the two sides together. We did have, for instance, a town hall meeting that was also facilitated by some of the faith community in Los Altos. We had that with my two other colleagues, Leon Beachman and Anna Song. That's it, my time's up.
Thank you, board member Ma. And candidate Baten Caswell?
Yeah, you know, I think it's a shame that we have this divisiveness in our community. And although it might not be the county office's responsibility to come in and mediate, as Ms. Ma has said, there have been many efforts to come and do that. And, you know, I am committed to bringing communities together. This has been bringing people together and looking for compromises and trying to help situations that are, so that we do the best things for all of our kids. that's my focus. And as a member of the county office, as a board member on the county office, I would also be doing that. I think it's really important that we have strong communities and that our communities support our schools and our kids. And if there are problems, I would be happy to be part of the community to hear multiple sides and to do whatever I can to help bring the community together.
Oh, perfect timing. We have time for one more question. And I'll start with candidate Baten Caswell. Please give an example of where you convinced board colleagues to work with you on an issue of importance in the community, even if that issue was contentious, and what was the outcome?
So I have a great example. We had a community member a number of years ago who now is on the board, who came forward with a very, very technical analysis of why we should no longer issue what basically are zero coupon bonds, where you pay all the interest at the end. Our board members were not really able to listen and understand what was going on. Our CBO had not brought this up as an issue. Our bond counsel had not brought this up as an issue. With my background in finance from working on Wall Street, I understood immediately what he was talking about and came to him and said, how can we bring people along with you, because they're not, you have a 30-page presentation that's too technical. I helped him go out into the community and find community leaders who felt the same way and had them come forward and issue a letter. And this helped convince our board members that this was a problem. This saved our district about $1.2 billion over 40 years. That was the estimate. This might be the biggest financial impact.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate Baten Caswell. And board member Ma, the same question?
The answer to that question is twofold, so I have to talk really fast. One is the case where we had a educare facility which we were building along with a number of cooperative capital cooperative partners. And one of the things that we decided as a board and took some convincing was to contribute some extra money to the board, to the construction, so that we could build out an extra building. That was something that was not necessarily popular at the time, but because of my commitment to early learning and the commitment of other board members to early learning, we were able to get that to go. The other thing, though, as far as an example of getting something done that was started off being contentious, was my starting of the Mandarin immersion program in Palo Alto. And that was after 6 years of working with collaboratively school board members, school administrators. I had a grassroots group of parents, and that was a lot of work.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
Thank you so much for your answer and adhering to the time. That's all the time that we have for this panel. Thank you so much to everyone who submitted questions. Again, there were lots of questions, and we will make sure to get those to the panelists. But again, we have Grace Ma and Melissa Baten Caswell running for Santa Clara County Board of Education, Area 1. And now we're going to move on to our last panel of the evening, the Los Altos Hills City Council. In this race, there are 3 seats open and 5 people running: Jay Sutaria, Stanley Mock, Raj Reddy, and with us tonight, Lisa Schmidt and candidate Lisa Schmidt and candidate Linda Swan. So candidate Schmidt, you have 3 minutes to introduce yourself to the audience.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Lisa Schmidt, and I'm running for Los Altos Hills City Council. The first thing people usually ask is, why are you running? And I'm doing it because I want to get back to my community. I feel very fortunate to have lived here, to raise my children here. I'm at a time in my life where I can commit and devote a lot of time to this issue and to this job, and I want to do so. In my career, I started out as an engineer. I worked in real Silicon in Silicon Valley, and I moved up the ladder and worked in marketing sales and became an executive. And I've also had a lot of volunteer experience in the community, both with local schools, local nonprofit organizations, community conservation organizations. That's what I was trying to think of. And most recently, my husband and I founded a company that reduces energy consumption at home, and we run it together, a very lean software startup. I have no personal agenda in this race. There's not one horrible thing I want to fix. I feel like the town is running pretty well. I think we should be very proud of it. There's always things we can tweak. There's things we can make better, and I really want to dig in and help find those. But I think one of the most important things is I want to represent the entire town. Because I don't have a personal agenda, I want to hear from everybody. This is a grassroots campaign for me. I'm reaching out to friends of friends. I want to hear what your concerns are, and I want to synthesize those and understand them. I want to bring people together so we can solve them well. Like I said, I think our town is a wonderful place to live. We're doing well financially. We can even make it better. But mainly I want to keep us moving together and being a coherent community because I really treasure that myself. I look forward to running. It's been fun so far. It's been fun getting to know new people and talking to them, and I hope we'll get to talk to more. So thank you for organizing this event. It's really fun. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Candidate Schmidt. And Candidate Swan, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Thanks to the Los Altos Women's Caucus for presenting this candidates forum and for taking the time to attend for everybody. I feel blessed to have lived in Los Altos Hills for 32 years. It's a beautiful, family-oriented town with open space and rural traditions that support the mental and physical health of us all. As my daughters grew up, we participated in Los Altos activities, the Festival of Lights Parade, painting storefront windows for Halloween, holiday carriage rides, and even riding stick horses and then real horses in the pet parade. There's hardly a more idyllic place for kids to grow up. I was born in Alabama and I grew up in Scottsdale, Arizona. After I graduated from Arizona State University with a BS in mechanical engineering, I decided to follow the California dream and move to San Jose. As part of an engineering training program, GE sent me to the University of California at Berkeley to get my MS in mechanical engineering and then my MBA at Santa Clara University. Analytical and business oriented, I oversaw the building and testing of mechanical equipment for power plants, and then oversaw the design and building of training hardware for NASA Space Shuttle astronauts. I began my volunteering in Los Altos Hills by working on the town float for the Festival of Lights Parade and the first town picnics. I was president of the Los Altos Hills Historical Society and wrote grants, applications to the Packard Foundation in Santa Clara County to secure funds to build a packing shed to house the historic farm equipment at Town Hall. I was the last president of Friends of West Wind, a not-for-profit organization that ran the town-owned barn until the town took it over and renovated it in 2008. In order to be prepared to respond to emergencies in town, including fire and earthquakes, I trained to be a member of the Community Emergency Response Team, CERT. And over time, the issues facing Los Altos Hills have changed. Now wildfires are a huge issue and my #1 concern. I'm sure the Q&A session will address more issues facing the town. But as was noted, 2020 is the 100th anniversary of women winning the right to vote. Women have come a long way in public service. When Ruth Bader Ginsburg was asked, when will there be enough women on the Supreme Court? She would say, when there are 9. And people would be shocked. Then she would reply, but there'd been 9 men and nobody's ever raised a question like that. And as of 2018, Los Altos was the only city that had an all-female city council. And I'm glad to see 3 women running for city council in Los Altos this election. Women bring a different perspective to politics, and having a wide variety of experiences and perspectives is key to good decision-making. So I salute all the women here running for office, bringing their unique perspective to government and helping improve the lives of people here in our wonderful communities. And I'm Linda Swan, and I'm running for Los Altos Hills City Council. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Candidate Swan. Okay, for our first question, I will start with Candidate Schmidt. There's heightened concern about fire danger in the hills. What measures would you support to increase preparedness and decrease the danger of wildfires?
Yeah, it was brought home to us very, very much so in the last couple of months. I think Los Altos Hills has had a good preparation to some extent with the local fire district, Los Altos Hills County Fire District, and everyone in the town is fighting to keep that organization the way it exists now. But I think we need to look at all of the different parts of our town ordinances that have to do with fire. So building codes, landscaping codes, a whole broad array of different ordinances. Go through them and bind them together so that we understand and can prioritize all the different areas that need to be affected. I think it's a deep dive into lots of different issues in the town and bringing them together so that we make sure we have a good fire response, a good evacuation response. This is going to take time. It's an important issue. There's lots of moving pieces, and we need to get on it. There won't be just one thing to do to suppress fire. It is a big, long haul that we need to work on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Schmidt. Candidate Swan?
Yes, I agree that wildfire is probably our #1 issue facing us right now. And I do believe that we need to support the Los Altos Hills County Fire District. They've done a good job in helping residents in the past with brush chipping and removing dead trees. And I'd like to continue that. And they have a lot of money in their budget right now that we can use to prepare for wildfires, but we haven't had one in Los Altos Hills since 1985. So they've done a decent job. But as with Lisa, I think we do need to look at our codes and make sure that every house has a defensible space, because that's the #1 determining factor about whether or not a house survives a wildfire is the surroundings and the building materials and what we've done.
Thank you, Candidate Swan. I failed to mention before that audience members should feel free to submit questions to the LAWC Zoom coordinator. So please feel free to submit questions if you have them for our candidates. I'd like to stay on the topic of fire. Both of you sort of mentioned this, but the Santa Clara County Board of Supervisors is investigating whether the Los Altos Hills County Fire District has mismanaged funds and used some of their funds in inappropriate ways, such as removing trees in areas not considered high risk for fire. Do you support suspension of the fire district's authority and transfer to the county's fire department? Why or why not?
Who goes first?
Is that me?
Oh, I'm sorry, Candidate Swan, please.
Well, I do think that the Los Altos Hills County Fire District has done a good job, and that we need to support their continuing management of our district. As far as not having a low risk of fire, I don't think there's one place in Los Altos Hills that has a low place of wildfire risk. And so I think they're talking about using the money in other places of the county that they think have higher wildfire risk. But we have a very high risk. And I think we need to keep the money here and do everything we can to support it. Like the one thing that they mentioned was fire hydrants. Well, they said that we shouldn't have built the fire hydrants. That's the most important thing, is getting water and a way to fight these fires. So I disagree with what the audit said. And the audit never said that the fire district should be disbanded. That came up later.
Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Swan. Candidate Schmidt, same question.
Yeah, so I think Joe Simidian, our county supervisor, did a great job in showing us the way forward on this particular issue. The subcommittee reported back to the commission that the fire district, our fire district, Los Altos Hills, had accepted all of the recommended changes to their structure and governance, and in return, or because of that, that the need to disband or to remove jurisdiction was no longer necessary. I think all the people in Los Altos Hills now need to respectfully respond to the commissioners and show them why this is important. In a time of high fire danger, where all these organizations are trying to figure out what to do, it would be silly to disband one that, like Linda said, has done a very good job. Again, there's things we can probably do better. The audit probably pointed us in the way to do that, but I think this really gives us a chance to, put our shop together and go forward. And I think we have that opportunity now, and it's an excellent outcome.
Thank you, Candidate Schmidt. For this question, I will start with you. Please talk about your budget priorities, especially with regards to the town hall expansion.
It seems like we keep moving that decision a little ways down the line, and that's a tough one. I'm a little concerned that the budgeted money for the town hall seems very high for what we're looking at, the expansion that we're looking at. At the last council meeting, they agreed to keep going on in the study, and that's probably what I would support doing. I think there is a need to expand the council or the city hall to some extent. I would be very worried that we get what we're paying for, that we're not paying an exorbitant price and not receiving some good value for that. But I think that's going to be an ongoing conversation, and the time to pick that conversation up again is when the study comes back. I think that was the right thing to do at this point. But it is worrisome. It is a very expensive expansion, and we need to keep track of that.
And Candidate Swan?
At the last town council meeting, I spoke against spending the $250,000 that they just allocated for doing architectural drawings, because with COVID, we don't know what the staffing requirements will be at the end of this, or hopefully someday we get to an end. But so I didn't see the need to continue on. It kind of came out was, we've been working on this for 3 years, so we might as well continue. But it also was pointed out that this expands our town hall by 1,000 square feet for $3 to $4 million. Well, $3,000 or $4,000 a square feet, even for Los Altos Hills, seems a bit pricey to me. Maybe we should think of something else to do if we need some more space. But I'm not convinced that right now with COVID and Google and Facebook are letting people work at home, and though we can't do with planners and stuff, but maybe some of the financial people could do it. I just don't see we need it, and that.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Money is the way to go.
Thank you.
Thank you, Candidate Swan. I'll start with you for this question. How will you balance property privacy and pathways?
Well, this has been an issue, but the pathways are such a unique feature of Los Altos Hills. And as the wildfires have pointed out, we need safe routes to get out in case of a wildfire. I saw videos of Paradise, California, when it was burning, when the roads got blocked and we have very narrow roads, and the firefighters are yelling at the people to get out and walk. And so we need to be aware that these are necessary escape routes. And there are ways to plant trees and provide privacy for people who want privacy along the paths. And generally the lots are large, and so you're not right up against somebody's house anyway. You're not walking 10 feet from somebody's house. And so I think that there are ways to mitigate the privacy issues and yet preserve our pathway system.
Thank you, Candidate Swan. And Candidate Schmidt, the same question?
Well, I believe we've put together a detailed, good process for bringing pathways online or making them accessible to people, and that's the process we should continue to follow. It's a process driven by the town, and people should not walk outside that process or take advantage of it. I think the argument that pathways are good for fire escape, I think we should review that. I understand the need for 2 exits, but I'm not sure a narrow pathway up the side of a hill is going to be a good solution to that problem. Pathways are Los Altos Hills crown jewels. We love our pathways, and we will continue to maintain them. But it's a long process because we need everybody to buy in as we add new pathways, and we need to negotiate that.
Thank you. Okay, Candidate Schmidt, this question is, how do you feel about the new state regulations regarding accessory dwelling units? Should Los Altos Hills craft its own ordinances to make ADUs better fit the town's large 1-acre lot size and setback requirements? And if so, what types of changes would you support?
Well, I have a deep belief that we need to be responsive to the need for housing in the Bay Area. And I also know that all of us moved into Los Altos Hills because we love the way it is. We love our space and our rural setting. So how can we balance those needs? I don't think it's reasonable for us to turn our back on the rest of the Bay Area and say, well, it's not our problem. So ADUs look like they might be a good path forward. And can we make them more acceptable to Los Altos to fit into our Los Altos Hills and fit into our lifestyles? I think we can. Can we make sure that when we're putting ADUs into the system, into our town, that they're really going for the purpose that they're supposed to be there for, which is people with a lower income need to live close to their work, and not for people who just want to rent them out for a really high rate. I don't know what the answer is. I think this is an answer. This is a question we're going to have to dig deeply into, and it may help to work with other communities such as Los Altos Hills in the area to come up with a solution. But we can't turn our back on the problem.
Thank you.
Of housing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Candidate Schmidt. And Candidate Swan?
Well, I think obvious we have to comply with the law. And I believe with Lisa that we need to do our share to provide housing for people. This area is very expensive to live in. And since we don't have any multifamily housing, ADUs are probably about the only way that we can do it in Los Altos Hills. But we also have to be aware of the fact that we have narrow roads. I'm not on sewer, I'm on a septic. So we have a lot of infrastructure issues. So I would suggest using incentives to help meet our requirements and yet try to keep our rural environment and make a balance between those two competing issues.
Thank you so much. That is all the time that we have tonight for questions. Again, those are two candidates for the Los Altos Hills City Council race, Linda Swan and Lisa Schmidt. I will now turn back to our host, Marge Bruno, to close us out.
First of all, I want to thank all of you in attendance tonight, which incidentally, at our peak, we had about 68 people. So I'm very glad to hear that. And of course, we want to thank all the candidates who participated. Unfortunately, as often happens at these forums, we were unable to get to all the questions submitted. So we'll be distributing the unasked questions to all of the candidates in a given race, but follow-up will be at the discretion of the candidate. Also, the recording of this meeting will be available shortly on the Los Altos Women's Caucus website. Lastly, I want to thank Daphne Ross, our moderator, Vicki Reeder, our timekeeper, Debbie Meredith, our technical guru, Ginny Lear and Susan Mensinger, who handled the invitations, and especially Robert Abrams, who oversaw all the preparation and programming for both nights. Thank you all for coming, and be sure to vote.